And from the Energy Research Institute in Moscow, Tatiana Mitrova joins me now. Thank you so much for taking the time. You've just completed a session now looking at the impact of the low oil price environment. What was the general feeling?
So first, nobody knows when actually the oil prices will pick up. There is an expectation that they will at a certain point, but the major uncertainty is when exactly and how we will survive until this period of time. And more importantly, the major challenge is that when the oil prices will start to grow, actually all this underinvestment which is accumulated right now will result most likely in some sort of oil deficit, and we will have another boom and bust cycle, which is actually frightening because the market is becoming unbalanced, and this deficit of oil which we might face by 2019, 2020, we will not have instruments to cover this gap in a fast manner.
And indeed, I can imagine that's going to be a huge concern to people. What can people do? What was the general feeling that people can do in the meantime in terms of maybe mitigating this, or at least surviving?
So I think the overall impression was that actually we need much more cooperative approach, and indeed there are no losers, there are no winners, so this black and white approach doesn't work in such a complicated matters. Actually lower oil prices result in some economic slowdown globally, so it's not that beneficial for the customers as well, and so we need to find a very balanced solution which would make happy both producers and consumers.
Now, when we look at this has been sustained low oil price, and it's got to be suffering for everybody, the economy in Russia, the economy really all over the world. And this is where I think now people are beginning to think more serious. Perhaps they didn't think it would go on so long.
Well, I think it was unexpected, and such low price levels were not predicted by any agency or any research think tank. So that came as a big surprise, and actually the period for how long this oil prices will stay at this level of $30–35 per barrel, it's also something unexpected. Ask any market analyst, no one will say that he could foresee such development. But here we are, and really it's a very big challenge how to deal with this situation, but nevertheless I'm sure that humankind have enough capacity to find mutually acceptable ways how to proceed and how to overcome this very painful situation.
Now, and here at this event here, the IEA OPEC IEF event here, the symposium, really looking at the outlooks. How do you find this in terms of being helpful for all of people like yourself who are analysing the market, producers, consumers, actual corporations, people who've been here? What are you hearing from people, the usefulness of this?
My own impression and all our exchange of opinions shows that actually everybody feels very much concerned, which is already a good sign. At least we identify this threat, and there is definitely willingness to find this solution, which would be acceptable not just for one market player but for everybody, which means that at least there is a goodwill. Then it's the matter of negotiations and finding this construction, the structure of outcome, but at least there is this intention quite visible. Therefore, I think this event is extremely useful and helpful.
And just very quickly, on the role of the International Energy Forum on this, an organization that really has been bringing the players together here. How important do you see the role of the IEF in that?
I think IEF as a platform for producer-consumer dialogue is absolutely critical. It's really very difficult to put together these two different mindsets and different objectives and different targets, and even comparing the outlooks produced by the International Energy Agency and by OPEC, you can see very different approaches. Nevertheless, finding the way to put them together and make them work together and make them compare their attitudes and make them thinking that probably not all of their assumptions are correct, and maybe they should also take into account the other side considerations. That's extremely helpful. That's really the only way to proceed in this global world.